Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Two events have occurred in the last 6 months that have caused a significant change in Zimbabwe politics. The 2023 elections, particularly the damning report of those elections by SADC and the AU, was one event. The second one is last month's election results in South Africa that have shaken the political situation in South Africa, but more so in Zimbabwe, as far as Zimbabweans are concerned. Both Zanu PF and the opposition have been shaken, and both of them are scrambling to reorganize themselves, reorientate themselves, and think of what to do next. I'll focus today particularly on the opposition. Yesterday, CCC faction led by Professor Welshman Ncube gave an interview, an eye-opener. What I'll do is I will play that interview, a snippet of it, in full, and then I would like to play it in section so that we can analyze that interview. And just listen to this.
Okay, I think that the three questions, President.
Thank you very much, Harare one. Thank you. In attempting to respond to some of the issues, let me say firstly, I am the acting president of the party, CCC, together with the leadership that remains, which was elected by the owners of the party at the Gweru Congress. The Vice President, Honorable Kore, is here, was elected to that position at the Congress in Gweru. The Secretary General, Honorable Wende, is here, was elected to that position at the Gweru Congress. The rest of the leadership you see here were appointed by us after the Gweru Congress. Honorable Rizai, Honorable Mazimure, Honorable Mateu, Honorable Chitzeva, and so forth and so on. So you must understand that this is the leadership elected at Gweru. which had the responsibility for the management of the party after the Gweru Congress. The councillors you see here are the councillors who went to the Gweru Congress representing the provinces, the 10 provinces, who were elected by the membership at provincial level. Of course, others have fallen by the wayside, others have left. A political organization is by definition a voluntary association. Those who leave are replaced by those who remain. That's in the nature of all organizations. It's not necessary for us to detail how many, the numbers, they are here, you can see them, take pictures. They were there in Gweru. The reality, you ask about, did we discuss Senator Tshabangu, did we discuss what has happened since 22 January 2022? Yes, we did. Yes, we made resolutions on that. We accepted as National Council that we slept on duty. We accepted that the confidence of the owners of the party in Gweru was reposed in us as a collective. We accepted our acts of omission and commission in failing to assert ourselves as the National Council of a democratic movement, timeously. But they say better late than never. We have asserted that authority. We are asserting that authority as the National Council. We have a responsibility to report it to the next Congress what we did well, what we failed to do. And for the owners of the party at that Congress to decide whether they still trust any one of us to continue to repose any confidence in us, or to select from among themselves a different leadership. Our main task as things stand now is not only to evaluate the state of the party, to rebuild the party, its organs and its structures, but also as council to take full control of the party in its relationship with the members, in its relationship with the state and state institutions. We acknowledge in this council that the state and some state institutions, from the judiciary through parliament, ZEC, have recognized the signature of Senator Tshabangu as the signature representing the party. We acknowledge that, contrary to what some of us have said in the past, that we didn't know Senator Tshabangu, we did. He was a member of this body. He was a member of the National Executive. He was a member of the National Council. He attended the fateful meeting of 22 January 2022. But he was not the Secretary General. He assumed that position under strategic ambiguity. Therefore, it behoves us, and we so resolve. We must engage him as council, as a member of council, to resolve this issue. What should be his role going forward? We further resolved to engage the state and state institutions with a view to regaining full control of the party, for the state institutions to recognize that decisions of this party are made by this body and communicated by persons authorized by this body. It is our priority task. Whether we succeed or not remains to be seen, but it is our task. Further than that, you ask how much damage has been done. It's self-evident. I don't know any of you, I can't see because of the lights, among you who speak in Ndebele. There's an expression in Ndebele which says, "Ubuza inja enduna ikuflathele." You don't have to ask, it is there, you can see. The damage is there. But the biggest damage is how far back this period has taken us in the struggle for a democratic alternative in the country. It will be years and years before we can reset, restore the agenda that the opposition is a democratic alternative to Zanu PF. That it is the antithesis of Zanu PF. Not just in terms of what we say, but also in terms of what we do. Our competitive advantage in electoral terms relates to who we are as agents of democratic change. When we begin to look like Zanu PF, then we cease in the eyes of the electorate to be that democratic alternative. So we are not underestimating the task that faces us. It's huge. The damage has been immense. But this council has made a call to arms. Whatever it takes, at the very least, we must be understood, we must be seen to be the democratic alternative, the party which will ensure that the ideals of the liberation struggle on freedom, on liberty, on respect of human rights. There are compatriots as we speak who have been incarcerated, who by all accounts have been tortured. No one under any circumstances should ever be subject of torture. We may differ with them, in our politics. But we demand that their human rights be respected. We demand that they be not subject to arbitrary arrest. We demand that they be not subjected to torture, which is prohibited across the world. You don't have to be our friend, you don't have to be our political ally to be entitled to enjoy those freedoms. We stand firm on that. So that's what I'm adding to what Harare 1 presented to you as a summary of our conversations. If you have further questions, you will take them. Thank you very much.
I'll stop it for a minute there. I think it is important here to understand that CCC, MDC, and then CCC have failed the country. What should be notable here is how Professor Welshman Ncube is being very selective. Of course, he's right to say CCC has failed the nation. It no longer represents the democratic alternative to Zanu PF. But what is important to note is how he has selected the period 2018 to 2023. And the title of the video itself says it all. Chamisa destroyed CCC. And that is exactly what Professor Welshman Ncube is saying here. Chamisa destroyed CCC. But the truth of the matter is, in 2018 to 2023, yes, a lot of bad things happened. But by that time, CCC was already in a mess. The real damage to MDC as a political alternative, democratic, as Professor Welshman put it, democratic alternative to Zanu PF, occurred during the GNU of 2008 to 2018. Professor Welshman Ncube, Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, Nelson Chamisa, Douglas Monzora, all these guys were in the GNU. And they failed to implement even one democratic reform. He admits here that the chaos, the implosion of CCC that has occurred after the 2023 elections was a result of the Chamisa strategic ambiguity. That's right. Indeed, Sengezo was able to assume the position of being Secretary General because there was no constitution, there was no structure, there were no elected representative in CCC. But the damage had already been done. MDC had failed the nation during the GNU when they failed to implement even one token democratic reform. And not only that, when they continue to participate in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they were giving Zanu PF legitimacy. That truth is at the heart of the problem here. And for him to now stand and pretend that all the problems or the failures of MDC CCC are focused on the period 2018 to 2023 is, to say the least, disingenuous. He himself participated in the 2018 elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, they'll be giving Zanu PF legitimacy. Participating in 2023 was just a continuation of that failure. One of the problems we tend to have with our politics, with our politicians, is that they tend to select a certain period and then try to, yes, they acknowledge their own responsibility in it, but the main purpose is to get a fall guy. And Chamisa now has become the fall guy of CCC. Responsible for the 24 years of MDC CCC's failure to implement reforms, its participation in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. And unless the people themselves open their eyes, they'll be conned into believing that nonsense. It is important, if we're going to move out of this mess, to accept the reality that what happened in 2018 to 2023 is, yes, it is important, but it is not the most significant part of the problems we are facing here. Professor Welshman Ncube is not telling us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And as long as we have got that kind of situation and we fail to deal with it, we'll be going round and round in circles. I believe the events of the SADC damming report and the recent elections in South Africa, they've opened an opportunity for Zimbabweans to really push for meaningful democratic change in Zimbabwe and to have those changes delivered. I'd like to play just the last bit of this interview, which brings back the points I was trying to make as well.
That the opposition is a democratic alternative to Zanu PF. That it is the antithesis of Zanu PF. Not just in terms of what we say, but also in terms of what we do.
So we want a democratic alternative to Zanu PF. Not in terms of what the opposition say, but in terms of what they also do. Just listen to what Professor Welshman Ncube said as the way forward?
We debated and discussed the issue of the 2018-2023 elections. We resolved that as part of our engagement with government and Zanu PF as a political player, we should engage them not necessarily on the outcomes of those elections, but on the numerous observer mission recommendations. There were recommendations that came from internal observers. There were recommendations which came from SADC and the other observer missions, which pointed to certain ills in our electoral system. We believe it is important that we have a conversation with government and Zanu PF on this, so that we do not get to the next elections, whenever they are, before those critical issues have been addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think you want to leave now? One last one.
I think this one is a follow-up that has been raised from his just last interventions. It seems he is saying that we are now focused at the results of the election, at the process of the election, not the results of the election. I just wanted to understand from a party perspective, what is your position on the past election? Would you call it a free, fair, and credible election as far as last election is concerned? Since you are now more worried about focusing on the processes of an election, not the actual result of the election.
It doesn't matter whether it was free or fair.
I want to understand.
I'm answering it. Let's wait for the full answer. It doesn't matter whether it was free and fair. It doesn't matter whether its outcome was legitimate or illegitimate. The fact of the matter is that you have a government which is in control of the country. The fact of the matter is that if we are not careful and do the same mistakes we did between 2018 and 2023, you will get to the next elections with all of those good recommendations unaddressed. We are saying we want to refocus our attention to those. We wouldn't be refocusing our attention to those if the election was free and fair. If the election had no issues, it had issues. That's why we want together as Zimbabweans to look at those observer mission reports and say, let's do what can be done to stop this cycle of disputed election after disputed election, so we keep going round and round in circles.
That is an interesting argument. The truth of the matter is, number one, what chance does Professor Welshman Ncube and his friends have of forcing Zanu PF to implement the reforms? Remember, these are the same reforms that he and his MDC friends failed to implement during the GNU, and they had the golden opportunity to do so. Now they don't even have any meaningful representation in parliament or in the Senate. The few who are there, they are in different factions. I think the real truth here is our friend is realizing the seismic changes, shake up in the politics of Zimbabwe, and realizes that, yes, it's untenable for them to continue participating in these flawed elections for the sake of the few gravy train seats that Zanu PF gives them. So he's willing to change. He wants to now appear as if they are the ones who are getting Zanu PF to implement reforms. They've got one card to play in this. In the past, MDC passed a resolution, MDCT at least, passed a resolution 2014 that there will be no election without reforms, which they quickly flipped over to participating with no meaningful reforms, as David Coulthard explained in the quotation that I've been showing you at the bottom of the screen. They participated out of greed. I think this time they realize that with the SADC damming report, Zanu PF having lost the backing of ANC in South Africa, participating in flawed elections would be very difficult, not only for them, but particularly for Zanu PF. They know that Zanu PF was outraged by the SADC damming report of the last year's elections, and the loss of the ally in South Africa in the form of ANC have really shaken that part to the core. Yes, President Mnangagwa was in South Africa yesterday to witness the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa as swearing in as President of South Africa. I don't think Cyril Ramaphosa had even to tell him that it cannot be business as usual for Zanu PF. The party's reputation for rigging elections, as much as ANC had done its best to turn a blind eye and to force the whole region to turn a blind eye to the rigged elections, now that ANC is no longer in control, it will not be able to do so. President Ramaphosa did not have to tell Mnangagwa that. They both know it. And Mnangagwa knows it. And our friends, Welshman Ncube and company, know it and are trying now to pretend as if it is their initiative. They want to talk to Zanu PF and put Zanu PF under pressure to implement reforms. The truth of the matter is they have no power at all to pressure Zanu PF. If the pressure is coming, it is coming from the SADC report and South Africa election results. They are just opportunists trying to muscle in and giving out public statements, now calling for we must stop this culture of participating in flawed elections and have disputed elections. That is the most important thing, as Professor Welshman Ncube is trying to emphasize here. So it has now become important now. What about in 2013? SADC warned Professor Ncube and company that you should not participate in the 2013 elections without reforms. They ignored it. They went on to participate in the 2018 for the same reason. And then 2023. And even after SADC had condemned those elections as flawed, CCC leaders went on to take up their seats. the same hypocrites who now want to pretend that Zimbabwe must focus on getting reforms implemented to stop the cycle of rigged elections. It's nonsense. The people of Zimbabwe must open up their eyes. The truth of the matter is, as much as Professor Welshman Ncube would want us to believe that MDC-CCC lost direction when Chamisa took over with his strategic ambiguity, MDC-CCC lost direction when they failed to implement the democratic reforms in 2008 to 2013. And this was not a mistake. This was as a result of their being breathtakingly incompetent and corrupt. Those are not mistakes. Those are serious faults. If Zimbabwe had an electorate that had their eyes wide open, these individuals should have been given their marching orders a long time ago. They should never be allowed to have any influence in Zimbabwe's politics in determining the country's destiny. When somebody has proven that they are breathtakingly incompetent and corrupt, they are beyond the pale. I believe that our friends in CCC MDC leaders forget about this tendency by them to try to isolate a few individuals and make sure that they get all the blame. And some of them, okay, they may get some splashings of mud. Oh, we failed. We should have done better and so forth. But nonetheless, we are clean. We can still lead the nation. People should see beyond that. These leaders have failed the nation. That is the truth. They are beyond the pale. The people of Zimbabwe should not be deceived by these people. And I can rest assure you, if Professor Ncube and company was to regain at least even some of their following, they will participate in 2028 elections without even one token reform implemented or a sprinkling of reforms implemented. Because it's not that they're committed to seeing Zimbabwe holding free, fair, and credible elections. They just realize that if they are going to participate in those elections and win the few gravy train seats, they have to carry some of the electorate, persuade them to participate. And all this presentation and admission that we did something wrong is meant to give the gullible individuals the impression that they have changed. They have not changed. When somebody is breathtakingly incompetent and corrupt, they will not change. They have already proven that they are corrupt and incompetent. And we must be smart enough to realize that these people will not change. Zanu PF itself, of course, would welcome the opportunity to redeem themselves. Right now, Zanu PF is promoting this idea of talks. What would be more redeeming for Zanu PF than to say, oh yeah, we have agreed now to a national government of national unity, anything to keep Zanu PF in power, they will embrace it. They realize that what they've been doing, rigging elections, will not be easy going forward. If they can talk with some of these factions of CCC and come up with a government of national unity they can sell to the electorate, they will do so. That government of national unity, they will do their best, as they did in 2008 to 2018, to make sure that Zanu PF remains the dominant party and no meaningful reforms are implemented. I think we should have nothing to do with both Zanu PF and these opposition opportunists and focus on the opportunity that has been created by the damning report from SADC and from the earthquake results, election results in South Africa that saw ANC lose its power and its influence in Zimbabwe politics. We should be absolutely focused on getting the reforms implemented, or there will be no elections. And we, the people, should be pushing for that. And we should not be fooled by individuals who have already proven that they are corrupt and incompetent and utterly useless, pretending now that they are the ones who have had a transformative period between 2018 and 2023 to see the light, to see the need for reforms. They are just trying to deceive us into believing they are the right men and women to lead the nation. They are not. That is my message to the people of Zimbabwe. The opportunity to implement reforms and finally get Zimbabwe to hold free, fair, and credible elections has been opened. But we have got to be the one in charge of that process. Trusting proven individuals who have proven to be corrupt and incompetent would be irresponsible, because they are only there to entice us into believing that they have changed when they have not changed. They will drag us into another meaningless election in 2028, under the pretext that there have been some changes, when in reality there have not been any changes at all. A leopard does not change its colors. I don't believe MDC CCC leaders are capable of becoming anything other than the corrupt and incompetent individuals that they are. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good afternoon.